Good evening and welcome to another edition of Tok Piksa. This evening we're talking about freedom, and more specifically media freedom, and media freedom here in PNG. Joining me this evening are Peter Wrightsey, former president of the Media Council of Papua New Guinea, and Titi Gabi, experienced journalist and head of one of the newest media outlets in the country. Welcome to Tok Piksa. We start off with media freedom in PNG. Is media in PNG free? Your take on it, Peter, please.
I think, I suppose recent times there's been a bit of pressure from different parts, and thankfully we haven't had any regulation of the media as such and direct control from government in terms of the mainstream media. But there are pressures building, pressures from not only the political field but also business and NGOs and general members of the public. So there is a bit of pressure on media practitioners. But on the whole, it remains relatively free.
How do we deal with those pressures, Titi?
Firstly, let me just comment on media freedom in PNG media. It's not like what it used to be when we used to have the Media Council around and we really acted like an organization that had a structure, had a, most importantly, reporting structure. What we do not have now is, and what's important that we need to note is, the reporting body, for the public to take their complaints. That used to be the standards committee. That used to be the Media Council's role, but it's not there anymore, and the Media Council's been silent for a fair while now. So that in itself starts to impinge on freedom, because media houses are now not really sure about who to go to if they have complaints from outside, because today what's happening is people outside are calling newsrooms directly, or even journalists directly to say, hey, this is wrong, you did this, we may take you to court, that kind of thing. So when that happens, the media and journalists tend to censor themselves, and that's when it becomes an issue of media freedom. That's the situation today. We do not have a solution yet. Hopefully we're working on one, but that is what I see as the biggest issue for media freedom in PNG. And because it's happened over a period of time, journalists now feel like that's the way to do it. Okay, I've got this story, but this may happen to me. I'll leave this bit out. So that becomes censorship, and that is media freedom. That is a real media freedom issue that we're dealing with.
So self-censorship is a danger for us in PNG media today. How do we deal with that? And has the absence of a monitoring body, or a buffer body, if you could say, has that educated the public in a way that they feel that they can openly criticize and directly criticize media houses, or even individual journalists to some extent, causing this self-censorship?
Well, look, I think the absence of stronger advocacy from the media industry itself and in a representative body like the Media Council presents this risks for the industry, because in the absence of that confidence, the confidence that the community may have within the media, you will open up the industry to these pressures that come directly from individuals, organisations that may have a specific interest that they're pushing. So that's the danger that we have. Titi rightly puts it, the work is now for the Media Council to perhaps concentrate again on that area, so that as a result of a greater focus, we may start to build that type of support to the media professionals and practitioners, because the last thing we want is this issue of self-censorship. Media professionals, by their training, should be in a position to be able to look at specific issues, to be able to apply the training that they've received, and be guided by their own newsroom practices, and also by their code of ethics, and through this process be able to put forward issues, information and stories for the public, so that the public can form their own views and take their own positions on issues that affect their lives. And that's really the important work of the media and media practitioners. We must try and continue to reinforce the important work that media professionals do, and we must do this via an industry body such as the Media Council, which can create this confidence within our society.
From the point of view of an individual journalist, what are the challenges that they face today that weren't here 10 years ago?
I think the biggest challenge now is the introduction or the emergence of social media. On one hand, it's a race with social media on who's breaking the stories. On the other hand, everyone's become a reporter. There is a thing called citizen journalism, and people are probably going to Facebook and Twitter and what have you for the news. I sit back and say, okay, they don't trust us anymore. Here's an issue there. It's either we're going to die out as an industry, or we get our act together and and move with the times, embrace social media and work smart around it and with it, because it's here to stay. Mm.
With the advent of social media and with the advent of people taking up the role as voices for the public and having the means to do so, where does the validation come in? Because I'm thinking that would be the biggest point of contention for any sort of information that's uploaded to social media.
That's correct, Neville. I mean, clearly, I think this is the argument or discussion that can take place. Mainstream media, or media in its form, is a validator of information. And that validation takes place because of a number of things. There are protocols within newsrooms which allow individuals to find information or be given information, and that protocol allows them to test that information through a number of checks, so that by the time they're ready to release that information to the public, you can be rest assured that that information has been fully tested in terms of its validity, the facts behind the information, but also importantly that any party that's implicated by that information has been given an opportunity to comment or make contribution to that information. So at the time when it's released to the public, there's that level of diligence that's been applied. The difficulty you have with social media is that social media, because of its form, is immediate. So what you're getting there is a lot of individuals that may express opinions, a lot of individuals that may be pushing agendas, a lot of individuals that may be fabricating information as well. So when you receive that information via social media, you need to do your own test to ensure that what you're receiving is in some form based on fact, particularly if it's about information which may have a significant impact on your life. And that's really the discussion that needs to take place within the community. It's a great form, but at the moment it sits within a vacuum of checks, a vacuum of control. So as a result, that's how it should be received.
One of the key requirements we need is, like we said before, the National Code of Ethics, which is what the Media Council has distributed to everyone. That's a National Code of Ethics. It's not newsroom. It's just a general mother constitution for what we do and how we do it. What that needs to trickle down to is newsroom charters, which we do not have. And we need to work on that, but we may have to go in reverse order because the National Code of Ethics is 12 years old. It's out of date. It's, times have changed. Technology has changed. The need for news has changed, so that needs to be developed on par with all those new needs. National charters newsroom charters will have to be workshopped in country, and your TV gang, yours will be different from the radio people, from new media, from newspapers, because we do things differently. Still pictures, moving pictures, sound only, and things like that. So that needs to be done first, and if, there are probably some newsrooms that do have those, that apply them. What we want to encourage in newsrooms is to comply and apply those in-house mechanisms that keep us safe, so to speak.
Right, so we go now to an issue that's current, an issue that's increasingly prominent amongst media discussions, and that's the issue of pressure, as you mentioned earlier, either from politicians. We've had a bevy of calls by our leaders. I'm not going to name any leaders, but their calls have been made for sort of sanctioning of social media output. Where does the media stand in that? How can we counter this, or what's the way forward with that?
Yeah. Look, Neville, this pressure is not new. I mean, over the years that I've been involved in the media industry, I mean, it's always been there in the background. Sometimes it surfaces and becomes a lot more forceful. But thankfully, the wisdom of our leaders has seen us maintain the independence and the freedom of the media. And in terms of our constitution, it's enshrined in our constitution, so we must pay some respect to the constitution as well. What I would encourage, though, is that we, the industry, the media industry, need to make sure that we aren't, in a sense, creating the opportunities for people to call for greater control. Now, I'll be the first one to say that within the media industry there is corruption, and I've said that in past media freedom occasions, and it's up to us within as media proprietors, as editors of newsrooms, to ensure that our codes are applied. And anybody within our newsroom who is found to be negligent in their duties, who is found to be influenced by outside parties in the formation or the production of their news stories, needs to be dealt with, and dealt with immediately, because it is because of those practices that we create the environment which allows this type of discussion to gain some sort of support. This can only be done through media organisations that are committed to a media council that's committed to a code of ethics, and a code of ethics that's implemented through a media standards committee, which the public has the ability to interact with. So that's how I think we need to structure or to rebuild the confidence and trust within the media fraternity.
Because there's one absence we have even in the national constitution, and I think it also applies to the many constitutions in the newsrooms. Penalties missing in the National Code of Ethics. There is no penalty for reporters that do this and this and that, which is in breach of our own constitution. So that is to be encouraged as a way forward. Okay, and of course we will expect pressure, because over the years we've had complaints, genuine complaints, from news sources, from the public, that this was misreported and nothing's happened. Of course we'll expect frustration over the years, okay? Over the years and over time. And we haven't been working smart by saying, okay, now this is how we do it, because the rest of the world's doing it. I think PNG is the only one that has a national code of ethics that's out of date and does not have penalties. And that should trickle down also to the newsrooms.
In your views, in your collective views, what or who is the journalist today in the PNG media? What challenges are being put on them? What do they aspire to? You've had experiences working with journalists on the news front, but journalists today, what are they thinking? What are they aspiring to? My experience level is that they know very little about freedom of rights, freedom of information, freedom of expression, or media rights in general. There are things. There is a thing called rights of journalists, and there's 8 points there, and nobody knows this. Newsroom managers don't know them. CEOs, GMs don't know these things. So I think there is a need for training and awareness in this, so we understand ourselves first before we can educate, government bodies about what it is and how we do it and what we expect of them.
I've watched the industry sort of grow, and one thing for sure is there are a lot more younger people within our media fraternity now, our media practitioners, and they come into the industry with, in a sense, an open, I suppose, with high expectations and an open mind. Most of them have been fairly well trained through the programs offered by UPNG and Divine Word. But I think when they come into the industry, that they are confronted with the realities of what they have to deal with. And that is, in a sense, sometimes under-resourced newsrooms, and a lot of expectation in terms of the kind of, I suppose, issues that they do cover. So with all that in front of them, they've got to try and apply the very low level of experience they have at the moment to some major and significant issues. Because a lot of them will either be covering courts, a lot of them will be covering the political developments within the country, the social developments within the country. So you can imagine, here's a young person coming into the industry, very minimal sort of experience or exposure to these issues, and yet trying to get a grasp of what's happening within these different sectors of our community, and then, in a sense, then summarising it so that it's in a form which is able to be understood by our communities. It's a difficult exercise to do. I see the challenge for the industry in supporting those individuals so that they can remain committed to their profession, remain committed to the industry, and then hopefully we can see some of these individuals become the shining lights, like Titi Gabi and Michael Osagonia, Neville Choi, and others that have committed to the industry and have become leaders in the media industry. So that's my hope, that we do see some of these young people supported so that they can be the shining lights in the future.
Titi, you've mentioned before that journalists are public servants of everybody. We tell the people what they need to know. We empower them with the information that we provide to them, and most times we aren't recognized for the work that we put into passing on this information. For the future and for the public that's watching this conversation, is there hope for the media in PNG?
Well, I'd like to think there is, and work is being, like you mentioned yourself, work is being done behind the scenes to get some of the key aspects of the industry, back on track again. Peter mentioned a very important point, and that is newsrooms are getting younger and younger, and the industry needs to understand why that is the case. The public needs to understand that as your newsroom gets younger and younger, it becomes an issue of freedom of expression and freedom of information. Okay, it's a tricky one because you and I know why the newsrooms are getting younger. The conditions aren't crash hot. It's hard work. It's your contract says it's an 8 to 5 job, but it's 24-hour job. Most of them are not compensated, and it's just about what they take home at the end of the day. It needs to be looked at seriously because, the media is everybody's business. If we keep getting a very young industry, an inexperienced one, then the public will know as much as they know. It just leaves, there's a risk there. It scares me that every year we have new graduates, and what are they telling the public through the work they do? You want to keep the Neville Togaroas, you want to keep the Jonathan Tarnuses, because they're walking histories. They know what happened, when, how it happened. They know the system, but we can't keep them because we don't have the capacity to keep them. I don't know if that's true anymore. We got to start bringing back some of these people, and we got to keep those we have in the industry already.
Obviously, the question there would be, do we have enough models of journalism and media reporters in PNG to foster that kind of mentorship?
Make them an offer, do we?
Yeah. Look, I think we do, Neville, and perhaps with the revitalised Media Council, we can create those opportunities. There are some very good practitioners there, very good journalists that have come through our industry. Some of them have gone on to other sectors, but they are very much media people in their DNA. So I think the Media Council could look to try and encourage some of those individuals to start to come back and provide mentoring roles to the industry and to particularly these young newsrooms. The companies themselves need to have a good look at some of the conditions that they can offer, particularly our journalists and the newsrooms, in order for them to maintain stability within the newsrooms. So all of this is work that needs to be done in a sense in parallel as we start to rebuild the industry body itself. And if the industry body can retain the confidence of the proprietors, that is the media organisations, together they can start to, in a sense, improve the overall economic viability of the industry. As a result of that, then hopefully that then flows into the key parts of these organisations, and the key parts of the organisations is the content, and news has always been the major driver of content for media houses. So you would think that the two would come together.
One final word from each of you. Where do you see media in PNG in 10 years' time? We'll start with you, Peter.
Oh, look, I think, Neville, the media in PNG is still very exciting. You know, when I got involved in the media, this is back in '94, we had one radio station operating, one commercial radio station operating, and then obviously the arrival of PNG FM. When I look around the broadcast section of the media industry, I can count over probably 30 or 40 provincial, national to a lesser extent, and local radio stations that now operate. So that's exciting. Obviously in the area of the new technology or the new media, that's also exciting. So I see that there's a tremendous opportunity there for media organisations to flourish, and a tremendous opportunity for media professionals to also find different avenues for them to create opportunities for themselves, but also platforms that they can express their own opinions and views, and also put forward news items as well. So I think we can be encouraged by it, but I think we also should be challenged. We need to continue to work very hard, and I think the efforts need to go into the Media Council to strengthen it. Efforts need to go from the Media Council to the mainstream media to ensure that there's a value link between the two organisations, and as a result, hopefully then improve the way that the media operates overall. So that's my hope.
Thanks, Peter. Titi.
I'm hoping for the best for the media industry in the next 10 years, but what needs to happen immediately is the key things that we discussed. When's the last time, the PNG Media Council or any media body organized any form of training for PNG media? And training is one key area we need to look at, and that's got to happen regularly, because trends are changing. We haven't had any such thing for a while, so unless that comes on, then we can probably look forward to a more vibrant PNG media like we used to be when we were a force within the region. We are no longer a force in the region, unfortunately. We're not. We've got the Solomon Islanders taking over us by standards, by content, by everything they're doing, because they're doing everything right. They're keeping it simple. We have some issues that we need to sort out before we can start looking 10 years ahead, but it's got to start today.
Okay. And on that rather hopeful note, and a very realistic and affirmative vote from you, Titi, I thank you both very much for coming in and for having a discussion on the current state of the PNG media and some thoughts on where we can take it from here. So, Peter Aitzi, Titi Gabi, thank you very much for coming on Tok Piksa.
Thank you, Neville.
Goodbye.